Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. Today we are starting one of the most fundamental concepts in Java, primitive data types. So why is important? Because even Java program, no matter how big or complex or simple, eventually boil down to handle these primitive values. We will cover their size, range, literal rules, and some common pitfalls to using these data types. Also, dive into interview style tricky questions that basically even catch off guard to experienced level developers. So we will follow no jargon, no skipping step. We'll go slow, like clear book style. And in the next video, we'll cover wrapper classes, autoboxing, and Java memory model. But for today, let's master this primitive data types. So what exactly is the primitive data type? So a data type simply tells Java what kind of value of a variable will hold. If you declare a variable, Java wants to know upfront like what is the type of that variable, like integer, float, character, or like a just a logical value true or false. So now here's the key. Java has two category of type, primitive and the reference type. So today we are focusing only the primitive data types. Java has eight primitive data types. Out of eight, four are integers, byte, short, int, long. Two floating points number, float and double. One for character, char, and one for logical value, true or false. So let us start from the byte. Before starting that, you see the order on the top, byte, short, int, long. So in the same order, you can do the upcasting. Upcasting means to say you are assigning some byte uh, type value to short that is automatically cast in the Java that we call is upcasting. Again, we can assign the in the reverse order like long value to int and short at byte, but then in that case you need to define the downcasting and remember their range as well. So for the range specific, let's check this. Start from the byte. So the byte size range is equal to like 8 bits, means one byte. Range start minus 128 to 127. So that is a byte range. So you rarely use byte in regular application, but is extremely useful when you are dealing with a memory sensitive array. For example, storing image data or working with the network protocol where every byte matter. So we can define byte equal to b equal to byte uh, b equal to 100. That is the format. You can use that. And the common pitfall is that if you are assigning the out of range value, then it will give you the compile time error. We will check this while doing practice. But for us now, we will remember this. We can't assign more than out of range any data type of value. So if they, as for the interview tricks, if they ask why use byte, so you can say uh, the answer is like it's for memory efficient in protocols of huge array. Saving 3 bytes per elements make a big difference. Okay, so like for example, we are storing files and Java use int as a default primitive data type, and the size, for example, you are storing some array which is coming into the range of byte as well. So if you are not defining it, and that is a huge file, so like you are investing of every value 3 bytes, which is not needed. So that's why the we need to be think about it and about the size of as well while declaring some variables if it is needed or not. Let's come to the next the short data type. So the short range is equal to 16 bits. Let's start from the negative minus 32,000 to positive 32,000. Example, you can declare as the same short as equal to 30,000. Interview note. Why we use it? It's mainly used in legacy code or in place like file format and embedded systems while memory. Savings are important, but again, in modern code, we are almost default to int. Then what we have next? We have int as a default data type that Java already use that as a default if we are not defining it. The range is start is negative to minus 3.1 billions to positive 2.1 billions. Example you can declare as the same, but the underscore is also allowed. If you are creating them, it will print without the underscore. but it will take as underscore if you are declaring it. So interview uh, question is like why int is default in Java. So because it is sweet spot between memory size and CPU performance. CPU natively handle 32-bit integer very efficiently. So that's why they define it as a int as a default data type. But if and in the long, so you can say the long is the last integer. So size is 64 bits and is equal to 8 bytes. So the range it starts is very long about to 9 20 trillion, like in trillions you can say. So the literal rule is that you need to append L capital or small for long literals at the last. If you are not defining it, so it's again right, Java treated as a integer data type and the value is like out of his range, then it will give you some compilation error. So to avoid that, you need to tell like we are using the long, and then you need to define declare L as a at last. So it means to say you need to append that at the last of its value. Key integer points again literal value without suffix. It's by int by default. Use underscore to separate digits that is allowed in the Java 7 plus version. Narrowing, narrowing conversion require explicit class like again downcasting. We need to define explicitly. Now we have two floating points number. First is float. So the size is 32 bits. It is defined up to 7 decimal points. The literal rule is that again for float, you need to append with the F, capital or small is your choice, but we need to define it. Otherwise, it will give you the compilation error. Means it use that double as a default floating point number, but you are defining it into the float. Like again, downcasting you to define. Otherwise, if you're using float, so you need to append with the F. The double size is like 64. It can define up to 15 decimal points. Example, double, you can declare as a double D and 3 point and then the numbers. Why use double? So higher precision and it is the default literal type. So again, the interview tricks ask that, like for example, 0.1 plus 0.2 is equal to 0.3. So we can say not exactly because a floating point number can't represent some decimal exactly in binary. That's why we use sometimes compare doubles with the tolerance value. Okay. So again, next what we have the characters and Unicode. So the char is like a 16 bits equal to 2 bytes, which is range 0 to 65,000, which follow the UTF standard ports Unicode. Why 2 bytes? Because Java was designed from the start to support Unicode, not just ASCII value. So how to define that? The same char C is equal to A because it's using the Unicode. So if you are assigning char C to equal to 65, it will print A again. And if you want to print B, so you can use that as like it can be asked someone to use. So like if I do this a capital A plus one, so what it will do? It will give you some error because it's a character, or it will print the characters, some character from alphabets. So you can say it will be print B because it is using the UTF-64 unit. So in the background, it is using some integer value that is defined also for characters. Now you are adding them, so it will be treated as a next character. The last but not the least, like the boolean, that is like true or false. The size language specifically, it's like a not a matter because it's different on the language which you're using. So in C we can assign to boolean 0, 1, but in Java we can't because Java falsely used to logical values. Okay, so that is a good cheat sheet you can say. In the single sheet we have their size, their range as well, how to declare that. So you can use as a single sheet to remember these are primitive data types. Now let's do some practice and check what we read it's exactly true or not. So let's start from the bytes itself. So for example, if we now I declared a byte b is equal to 100, so it will print b. Okay. So, but if I'm defining it's like more than 100 or like out of their range, let's say 200. So what it will do? It will give you compilation error. So as you see, it's giving you like a required type. It's a byte you declared as, but the value it's provided is int. So the data type can't hold this type of value. So that's again we work what we read. It's like so true. Now the next is let's say it's let's say defining it 50. Okay, and if I'm doing this b multiply by if I'm doing this 2. So now what is the problem here? Because 50 multiplied by 2 is equal to 100 and which is comes to the byte range as well. But the problem is we didn't define that. So this operation, it's an integer type. You need to define it like the downcast or you need to define it what operation you are doing. Otherwise it will take care as a int like operations and which is out of his range. So if I am doing define it explicitly here by now and then the whole operation we need to define it treat as a byte. So now it is working. Okay, because this operation we declared as a byte, now it will be print again 100. See, okay. The next thing is integer division. Let's do some practice. If I'm doing this system dot out of print ln b and we are 5 divided by 2. So what it will be print? If you can guess, so the value should be is 2 because the whole operation is used or defined as an integer. So it will be print as 2. Okay. So why? Because if logically we can think so 5 divided by 2 should be 2.5, but we are declaring it as an integer, so it will be print as a only 2. Now if I want to use exactly the output, so one of them we should define as a floating point number. Now it is set as a double because we will define as a f. So now it will be print as a 2.5. See, so this is working. So the next thing what we read in the long is 0.1 plus 0.2 is exactly 0.3. So let's check because because that is can't represent exactly in the binary, so it is treated like a 0.3 something with some decimals value because it treated as a double, so it will be defined as a 15 decimals points. Okay, so that is the problem in here, or you can say that is the Java is treated as a double values. For example, the next thing what we check, we we are doing it here, but we just came about reading. So let's say in, or you can say long L is equal to 100 So because it's a long, but it's not created is because integer number it's too long, and it is treated uh, by default it is using as an integer number because we didn't use as a literal value for the long. If we are defining it, if I am appending with the L character, now it is working. If I am printing it, so it will print this value without the L. See, so this is the practice you can do some. Okay, now we have some interview question as well. Uh, so how many primitive data types are there in Java? So for example, we have you can answer eight data types and then you can name it the all the data types. So which data types are signed? So all numeric type except char is assigned. Otherwise, all numeric types except char are the signed type. So what is the default type of a integer literal? So for decimal, integer literal int, decimal will be double. What does float f is equal to 3 point give some error? So yeah, it will split it as a double by default. Assigned to float requires suffix or cast. Otherwise, it will give you some error. So what is the result of 5 by 2? So it's a we recently just checked. So 5 by 2 will be print as a 2 because both operands are integers. Okay. So the next question, does boolean have a specific size? So as we read about earlier, Java language script does not mandatory memory size for boolean. It's a logical values like true or false. Memory layouts. It's a JVM dependent. So that's why. What is the default value of an instance variable of a type int? So the local instance, like instance variable. For example, like instance variable, it's like the class, right? You are defining it, declaring it as a class level. So the default value is zero. If you are declaring it within any for any method, so there is a no default value. You need to be initialized before use. Otherwise, it will give you error. Okay. So explain char is a numeric type. So character story UTF-16 core unit can be used in a numeric expression converted to int. So in that case, we can use that. So explain casting and why b is equal to b multiply by 2 fails. So we recently checked because it is treated as an integer data type. So for assigning it to the byte or doing some operation, we need to define it as a byte operation. Like you can do in that way also, or you can define what we just recently practiced. So what is the integer overflow like up to when, for example, integer overflow, it's like when you wrap around module the to the power n. Like for example, for the byte 130 value, it's like the overflow value because the range is up to the 127. So that's a complete breakdown of Java 8 primitive data type. We covered size, range, literals, rules, common mistake, and some interview tricks. If you nail this basic, you will save yourself from a lot of silly bugs. You will definitely be more confident in the interview. In the next video, we'll go one step further into wrapper classes, autoboxing, and how primitive interacts with the object memory. That's where things go get really interesting. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you like this helpful, please do like, subscribe, and share. And if you have any question apart from this, you can drop in the comment section. I'll be happy to help. So I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.